Hi guys, how are you? First of all, I want to welcome you all to our show, which is Science and Research Simplified. And we have already successfully done 5 episodes, and your response were overwhelming. We got a lot of questions, a lot of feedback from many students. So it did really well. So that's why we are back with the episode 6. And today we are going to talk about diet, that how the diet, affect our health and the research related to the diet. So we are going to talk about all those stuff in today's talk. So, but before we start today's talk, let me ask you one thing. That if you're new to this channel, first of all, what you have to do is subscribe to the channel so that you can watch all our show. And not only you have to subscribe the channel, you also have to hit the bell icon. So bell icon is on the right side. You can see it. So if you press the bell icon, you will be able to get notification for all the talks we do every Saturday. So that's what you have to do, and that should be all to watch the show regularly on our channel. So let's with that let's invite today's speaker, and let me have him on the screen, and then we can start today's show. So let me add him. Hi, Dr. Raghav. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. What about you?
I'm very good. I'm very happy that you are giving your time for our students, and going to talk about your research, and also a lot of stuff related to diet, because that is something which is very important. So I'm very happy that you came.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
yes,
Okay.
and viewers, before we start today's talk, let me quickly introduce our speaker. So our speaker is Dr. Raghav. He is from Nepal. He did his undergrad and master's from Kathmandu in Nepal, and then he moved to Korea, South Korea, where he did his PhD. So he did his PhD from Korea, and after doing his PhD, he have been doing actively doing research in Korea for last 3 years as a postdoctoral fellowship. And during his PhD and also during his postdoc, he has published multiple scientific publications. So we publish our research work in scientific journals. So he has multiple publications during his PhD and postdoc, and I'm very happy that he is giving his time to us. So welcome, Raghav.
Thank you. I'm also much more happy that actually I got the time or space to say something about my research topic. And actually, I'm eagerly waiting for you that when I will get a chance to say something for you.
No, no, no.
And that,
I have been chasing you. I have been chasing you to come and give a talk. So it's our privilege to have you on our show, and I'm very sure that many students, and just for viewers also, like this talk is not only for student. It's going to benefit everyone, because what we are going to do is we're going to talk about diet, and we are going to talk
yes,
about fasting. We are going to talk about how those our food is related to disease, what are the disease which is caused because of the food habit, and then what are the research which is being conducted in this field. So there is a lot of information you're going to learn from this talk. So if you are a student, join us and get benefited. If you're parents, if you are it's for it's a kind of public talk, so everyone can enjoy the show. So that's what I want to say. So with that note, let's start today's talk. And Raghav, if you would like to have your PPT open, then we can start today's talk.
yeah, okay, exactly. Okay, I will directly go to my topic, and of course, my topic is the diet is
So,
what.
okay, so let's, so you can open your presentation. And while
Mm-hmm.
you're opening your presentation, the way we start talk is we are always interested to know that what inspired you to become a researcher, what inspired you to become scientist. Because many
Yeah,
students will be watching it, some of them, they might be interested to become scientists. They don't know how to become scientists, and they might get inspired from your story. So if you want to tell a little bit about your journey,
you know
and then we
yeah,
can start.
exactly when I was just a kid, not kid, a high school student, I watched a movie about some sci-fi movie, and I see some scientists. They have a lots of beard and mustache, and they are working lots of chemical things. And exactly, I like that. Okay, I want to become a scientist. I have a lots of beard, mustache, and might be working and talking lots of work. And but that's just, and I forgot, and we had after my what after my SLC or my metric, Yeah, I have to go to the, okay, I have to do science and I have to go to the medical. Okay, so but I was not interested in medical, of course.
Okay.
Frankly, I was not interested.
Mhm.
So I choose microbiology for undergrad, that bachelor degree. Microbiology, I like that. And pro microbiology, I wanted to do science, but in my country, Nepal, there is not so much, the lab is not so much good. So I got a help from my brother-in-law, and I come Korea, and yeah, my dream come true. I just play with my mice, okay, and I want to work with the science, and that is passion that much good for me. And it looks like I did master in Korea, did PhD in Korea, and is still just doing postdoc in Korea, and I like it. So
So,
i'm just
so,
i'm
so
just enjoying my life.
just to add for that, when I was also young, right?
Yes,
We used to watch a lot of television advertisement, like Colgate paste or whatever, and there it will be one white, you know, lab guy will come with some chemical in their hand.
of course, yeah.
We're gonna kill 90% bacteria. There is 1% bacteria. Your toothpaste has this, that. And that was fascinating for us. It was like, oh my God, they're doing something outstanding, and we should do that. And that's where I also got inspired to become scientist. And in movies, they show they are a long beard and they're like, not tidy. They're not, they're totally into research. That's not the case. We have life, we have family, we
Of
have
course,
life.
yeah.
We enjoy movie, we enjoy singing, we do everything like any other person do it. And but
Yeah,
we, like our profession, we do research on day-to-day basis and try to tackle some of the challenging problem in this world, right?
yeah, yeah. That's why anyway. So we got a time, and exactly our professor like us, and then of course we're just working, and yeah, exactly my lab, they just work on the lipid metabolism, and yeah, I will talk about some topic.
Okay, so if you have any presentation, if you wanna open your presentation, then probably we can start today's talk, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Oh, okay, okay. Then I'll go to my presentation. I'll go to the talk, and
Okay.
let's start our talk.
And then
So I will.
for viewers, when he's opening his presentation, if you have any question, any suggestion, feel free to give your suggestion questions in the comment section. We'll try to take your suggestions. If something which you find is difficult to follow, it's a very interactive session. It's not like regular talk. Stop us in anywhere you want. Uh, Frankly, tell us that this is something we could not understand. We can just go back and try to explain that again. So try to keep it interactive. Interrupt us. Keep asking question, and we'll try to keep it smooth and gentle.
Of course,
Yeah,
that will be very good things.
yeah,
Yeah, that will be a good things. Anytime you can ask me.
yeah.
And yeah, my topic go to the
So
diet.
I can't see your presentation yet, so you need to
Okay,
share
still
your
you can see. Okay, okay,
screen.
I'll just make it. Okay, okay, I will just make it.
Yeah.
Uh,
So while he's trying to put the presentation, viewers, if you are new to this channel, we do this research talk every Saturday, 8 p.m. Indian time. And if you are new and you want to encourage our work, hit the subscribe button and also press the bell icon. It will take just few seconds, but you will be updated. You will get notification for all our talks, and you can enjoy. And there are five other episodes which we already done, so you can anytime go to our channel and watch them. So we have our presentation here, and I think Raghav, you can start.
okay, did you get me?
Yeah.
So my presentation is diet, friend or foe. Two confusion word. Diet is friend or foe. So of course, diet is friend, because without diet we can't live. We can't take, we get the energy from diet. Of course, that should not be foe. But whatever, if you, okay, just take an example. If you have a car, and if it is petrol car, if you add diesel or if you add gasoline, of course they will not work. So the petrol car use only petrol, they did not use diesel, or diesel car use only diesel, not petrol or other things, that the same thing. So if the diet is same thing, or diet is proper, the diet is friend. And if they are not proper, of course they are friend. So I'll go to the topic. Of course, every bite, whatever we eat is okay. Sorry, every bite, whatever we eat, is exactly they're fighting with disease or they're feeding it. Of course, that is a good thing. That means whatever you can eat, it should be fight with disease or other thing. it should be feeding somewhat the disease or something like that. So we have to take care about the diet, either what we choose. It should fight with disease, or they feed, or we can feed the disease or something like that. So the evil and god of fat, in our Nepali language or some Hindi language, we can say that evil and god, that is Rakshas, sorry, god, that is god of fat. How we can say it, the god, the main Bhagwan of fat. So of course there are two kind of, we have to make balance. We have to make balance of energy intake, what we food, what we take. It should be expend almost all good things. Yeah, it should be expend almost all. So if we expend whatever we food, then whatever we eat, then our body will be normal. We can see it. You can see the normal body, and our metabolic tissue, whatever the liver, muscle, and pancreas, they will work much normally. But when our energy intake is much more, when we eat much more food, but we did not work out, we did not do energy expenditure, we did not do much more, then we can become overweight or obesity. You can see the picture, there is much more the obese weight, and we can say that our liver, muscle, pancreas, or metabolic tissue, they have more lipid deposition. You can see the yellow color is much more lipid deposited, and we can say that the fat or lipid is deposited in all our metabolic tissues. So we can say that this is evil of fat. And if we work normally, this is the god of fat. So see the picture, that is bad habit. We can say that bad habit, if we eat some Western food, not only Western food, but our food also, that for example the junk food, some sweet, more sweet, if we did not work, just rest in home, just watching TV or computer, whatever, and if we eat some unhealthy food, yeah, we become much more fat, and they are the obesity. And this is the actually the adipose tissue. When we eat anything, they go to the adipose tissue, our adipose or fat. They store food in the form of lipid, and that's why our what stomach or chubby, you can say, they become much more fat. So they store food, and why they store food, when we need, in during energy deficient condition, they store food is go to the liver, and then we can use it. So this lipid, you can see, this is the adipose tissue. You can see they contain more lipid or more fat. When we eat much more, you can see the lipid becomes much more bigger.
So
That
one
is,
thing, Raghav, I want to ask you. So basically,
yes,
what you are trying to say is that the energy supply we need is comes
yes,
from food, right? And if
of
you
course,
take much more food than you require, then obviously it has to be stored somewhere.
yes,
And we store it in adipose tissue. That's what you are saying. So that in our body, there are different kind of tissues like
hmm,
muscles and other tissues. But adipose
yes,
tissue is one of the tissue where these fat get stored, you
yes,
know. And so that when you are deprived of food, or you don't have enough source of food, then those adipose tissue will provide energy. But if you are
yeah,
keep walking, you are keep eating, and you are not utilizing those energy in form of activity, physical activity, then obviously the fat will keep depositing, and then you become fat or obese. Is it what you are
yeah,
saying?
yeah, of course. You can see that, you can see that the fat become much more obese or much more increase. And you can see in the liver also the lipid is deposited, you can see somewhere here, and also muscle also, and also all the tissue, you can see the lipid is still deposited, and we become much more obese, and the metabolic syndrome occur, which I will show in the later figure.
So just
So
to just
this
to
is,
add just to add here, so as you
yeah,
mentioned that the lipid is not only deposited in your adipose tissue, it's also stored, or it also it affects liver also,
of
right? That's
course,
what you are saying. And
yeah,
because liver is one of the key organ of our body, it controls many metabolic processes in our body. If the liver is affected, it's gonna affect your health to another dimension, right?
of course, yeah,
Yes. So excess food is gonna deposited in your, as a fat, but also gonna get deposited in the liver and gonna affect your many health conditions. So
yeah.
what are the health condition which happens because of the excessive deposit of fat or lipid? in our
Yeah,
body?
very good question. Yeah, I'll just show what is the actually what is the health condition. So just I will show the picture. Okay, how obesity works. So you can see
Mhm.
that this is the two picture. You can see the normal picture. If they eat the normal diet, yeah, of course they are slim and much more good, much more healthy. But if there is more Western food, yeah, you can see they become much more obese, and everywhere in every part in the body the fat is deposited. That's why they can see that much more fatty. So of course the symptoms, okay, if we eat obese food or some fatty, what is the symptoms of that? The very first thing is our the stomach. They looks like the stomach looks like the pear shape or apple shape. That is apple shape or pear shape. Yeah, of course this is the kind of what okay, we have the, this is the sign of obesity. The people can think that if you have this kind of stomach, or if you have this kind of chubby, okay, you have the starting point of the metabolic syndrome. And also other thing is that your the skin around the neck become much more browning, and of course the more lipid is stored in the liver, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is induced, and you can inability to what the focus anything. You have the more high blood pressure, low the good cholesterol level is was low, and yeah, there is a lots of things you can say that there is the some metabolic syndrome, of course. And of course we have shown about the obesity, and metabolic syndrome occurs due to the obesity. And there is lots of metabolic syndrome, that is heart disease also. If there is lipid is deposited, heart disease also takes place. Also there is more lipid problem, hypertension, that is hyper blood pressure, diabetes, even cancer will takes place. So the main function of metabolic disease is the some global problem is diabetes. What's the diabetes? Diabetes exactly is a disease that involve, that is they have the problem on the insulin. And of course that is the normally in normal case the pancreas, that is the organ behind the stomach, they release insulin, okay, in our body. That release insulin to help our body and store and use of the sugar and fat from the blood we eat. And the diabetes can occur when the pancreas produce very little or less insulin, and that time we can say that okay, there is metabolism. That is when the body does not respond appropriately to insulin, then we can say that diabetes is induced. As yet there is no cure. People with diabetes need to manage their disease, and they have to become healthy. So you can say that there is some worldwide how the diabetes takes place. Well, now diabetes takes place all over the globally, and the two giant country, India and China, always become first during the diabetes, you can say, and it is followed by the US. And of course they are increasing a lot. You can see the global world map, and we are from the South Asia. So you can see that in 2019 there are almost 88 million people affected by diabetes, and it is expected that 2030 it will become 115 million, and on 2045 it will become 153 million. That is almost double in 20 from 2019. So of course the food, unbalanced food becomes makes the diabetes much more. So we have to take care of that also. And beside diabetes, there are also risk factor of different
So,
metabolic syndrome.
Raghav,
Mhm.
before you go to other, metabolic syndromes,
Mhm.
uh, so just for viewers to be to understand it like more clearly, so all these metabolic syndrome Raghav is talking about is because our metabolites in our body get affected, right? Because of the
Yes.
fat deposition in the lipid. So lipid,
Yeah.
if it is so liver is affected. So liver controls all the metabolic processes in our body. So obviously it causes many metabolic diseases. And as Raghav mentioned very nicely, that there are several metabolic diseases which happens, including diabetes, blood pressure, hypertension, including cancer.
Yes.
So for the diabetes, as you mentioned, that one of the reasons for the diabetes is when you eat a lot of junk food and you have a lot of lipid deposition in your body, including the liver. that leads to diabetes. Is that the only reason, or there's some other reason also for diabetes?
No, no, that only food is not only the reason, but food makes the main things. Of course, food makes the
Okay.
main things.
Okay.
Only not food is
Okay.
only not
So
food is
food
main
is
things.
also one of the key player
Of
when
course,
we talk about diabetes. And if we have a proper diet, which you're going to talk about later, we can control diabetes to some extent, or at least we can make sure that diabetes doesn't, you don't diabetes doesn't hit you, and
yeah,
you
of course,
be safe, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I
Yeah.
will I will talk later
Yeah.
how we can save it.
Sure. Sure. Go ahead.
Except diabetes, I mentioned that okay, we have another risk factor for metabolic syndrome also, that is high blood pressure, and also high blood glucose, reduced good cholesterol, and increase on bad cholesterol. Of course, insulin resistance, that is also risk factor of metabolic syndrome. And yeah, we can we have to avoid this syndrome by proper medication also. If we can't avoid the food, we have to make a proper medication also. For example, if you have body mass index is much more than 25 kg per square meter, you have to take care of you think that okay, I have the obesity, I become the obesity, so I have to take care of this. If you have hypertension, more blood pressure, you have to control your diet or take the medicine. And yeah, this that means you have to, and same thing, you have to avoid the X factor, that is, you can see here, and so we can avoid it. And other things, the main things also, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Actually, this means that the fat is deposited more in the liver. So this is called the, actually, what alcoholic fatty liver disease and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I'm talking about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Even though if you did not drink, your fat, the fat is deposited almost in the liver. And of course, how the normal liver, you can see it, this is the normal liver, how the normal become the cirrhosis, you can see. In normal condition, okay, if you eat more, if triacylglycerol or the fat is deposited more, it become the steatosis, that is more lipid, you can see the yellow color is steatosis. And if even worse, they become the non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, you can see more the liver, more lipid is accumulated, and then fibrosis, and worst condition, they become the carcinoma, you can see. And this is the morphology of liver, this is the normal morphology of liver, you can see much more clear. And in the Western diet, that is the unbalanced diet, you can see the white color in the hepatocyte, and that is the lipid is deposited. This is the normal condition. This is the by eating the normal diet, and hence this is the just starting of the, this is the steatosis liver. And after more the tissue is deposited, you become the carcinoma, the liver become much more worse, you can see. And this is all due to the uh, uh, lifestyle, or the modern lifestyle, or Western food, or the junk food makes much more liver, much more deposited fat into the liver. And so, as I mentioned, that we can control. Of course, there is everything. There is solution. If there is problem, solution also. We have to take care of that. You can see the beautiful color, the green color, and that makes much more beautiful. So, how we can control the metabolic syndrome? Of course, by diet. Of course, another thing is by fasting. It should be calorie restriction, that is less amount of food. And the new fashion is IF, that is intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting means just eat one day, another day just fasting, or maybe half day just eat, half day do not eat, and that is the intermittent fasting. And of course, exercise and modify your lifestyle, and if you eat the right, you will take care of how metabolic syndrome. So this topic said, they say that do fasting, of course. If we are religious, either Hindu, Muslim, or other, they do fasting. So the science also said that do fasting twice a month, not only for God, but also for your health also. Of course, we can do fasting, and if we for health also we can do fasting, and if we do fasting, our health also much more good. How? Just see it.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that will be interesting to know, because I have been hearing about fasting, and many people talk about doing fasting, but it will be interesting to know that how fasting helps us, to get rid of these metabolic syndrome, or at least not to get these diseases.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that will be a good thing. That's why I say that how fasting works. Yeah, of course, people say that you have to do fasting and your metabolic disease will be controlled. But the mechanism, I will not go detailedly, but I also just the flow how fasting works in our body. So of course, as a very first part, I just mentioned that when we eat food, they go to the adipose tissue, that is the fat. You can see here the adipose tissue, the food or fat is stored in the adipose tissue. And this adipose tissue, this lipid, stored lipid, is used during when there is nutrient deficient, if there is no food. So if there is no food, the liver or all the tissue, all the metabolic tissue, they need food, they need fuel, of course. And the stored lipid in the fat, they they hydrolyze. That is, the fat is hydrolyzed to free fatty acid, and they go to the bloodstream and they go to the liver. And this free fatty acid, this fat, go to the liver, of course. And if they go to liver, we can, in our scientific word, we can say as lipolysis or hydrolysis. During lipolysis, the lipid in the adipose tissue become much more small, and this lipid go to the liver, and this liver, they supply this fat, that is our fuel, to other organism. And hence, if it is small, the lipid or lipolysis become much more small, and our we can work much more, and that's why we become much more skinny. This is the just the normal form. So how the lipolysis takes place, or how the fasting. So you can see this is the lipid, this is adipose tissue. The yellow color is much more big. You can see that the fasting increase lipolysis. Lipolysis means the lipid deposited in the adipose tissue become much more smaller.
Yeah, so basically we break
Yes,
down the
they're
lipid
breaking.
into
Yes,
smaller.
of course,
Yeah.
the lipids is break down into fatty acid. Okay, and 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 if you feed, the lipolysis is decreased, and that's why in the diabetes the lipolysis should be increased, of course. So the lipolysis makes the fat much more small, and the liver works much more normally. Of course, they work in the muscle also. So the fat movement is much more necessary, or in the fasting condition, or calorie restriction. Calorie restriction means just a small amount of food you can eat, and that also makes the lipolysis much more induced. And another solution is, of course, we know daily exercise or daily workout also makes the decrease of the fat accumulation. Yeah, as you can see that daily exercise or yoga is a best therapy to overcome a metabolic disease. Yeah, I also some cartoon how they work. I will not go detailedly, and because you can see that, okay, how they exercise. During exercise, more mitochondrial biogenesis. Mitochondria means they induce much. If you go to the high school world, mitochondria, that is the powerhouse of energy. They induce much more energy, so they increase much more energy, and that decrease the adipocyte level. And this adipocyte level decrease, and hence the inner and hence the our heart works much more clearly. Also, they decrease the inflammatory effect, and hence we work much more clearly. So exercise is also much good beneficial for metabolic syndrome. And
So,
another
so
thing is that
before we go to the next,
yes,
solutions, just I wanted to tell you that when I was doing my PhD, right, in
okay,
2011-12, during my first
yes,
year of my PhD, so the lab I was working in is they were working on these. They used to work on diabetes,
mhm,
and I also worked for a year on that project where we are trying to understand that. So there is a clear correlation between obesity and diabetes. Like obese
yes,
people have more tendency to become insulin resistant or diabetic, right?
yes,
So we are trying to understand that. I mean, I was working on one of the project to understand that how these two things are correlated. And as you were talking about, the fatty acid or triglycerol, which goes into the liver. So we're trying to trace some of the pathways. And I remember that I used to work on these mice. We used to feed them something called high fat
high
diet.
fat diet,
So,
yes,
yes, so there was two set of mice. One mice will be fed on normal food, and one set of mice I used to feed them with a high fat diet, like just junk food. the kind of food we eat in restaurants, or like junk food, like fries or uh, pizza or pasta, whatever it is. So those
Mhm.
mice used to become really bulky, heavy, and fat. And
Yes.
then we used to, obviously kill them and study some of the pathways. And those days when I was reading about some of the stuff which controls the diabetes or these kind of metabolic diseases, was exercise. Like I remember reading some of the paper where they talked about how there was many studies people have shown that when you do exercise, for the people who are not from science background or who are not scientists, for the students, like they feel like exercise is something physical. You are doing some activity, but there is a lot of biochemical changes that happens in your body
Of
when you do
course.
exercise. It's not
Yes.
just you're sweating, it's not just
Yeah.
you're running and you're exhausting your energy. It's not like that. There is a lot of chemical reaction which changes in your body and which controls or which improves a lot of, and there is a
Absolutely.
lot of study
Absolutely. Yes.
people have done, that set of like 20 people
Yeah.
are doing exercise, 20 people who are not doing exercise, they have sedentary life, and then they compare their biochemical pathways, signaling pathways, and then they realize that there is tremendous change in the pathways for the people who are doing exercise. And
Yes.
obviously there's a direct correlation of exercise to your health, not only physically but also biochemically. So it has a lot of direct correlation. So
Yes.
so now so far we have understood that fasting has a direct correlation to our health, to burn the fat, to burn the excess fat we have. Exercise is
Yes.
another way to burn your excess fat, and when you burn excess fat, there will be less fat in your adipose tissue and liver, and that's why your liver will work normally, or
Yes.
its function will restore if there is any problem which happened because of excessive fat, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That
yeah,
that
I just
actually,
wanted to, yeah, let you know that I had worked for like very brief period of time,
of
but it
course we
was
do.
fascinating to work on that.
Of course we are also doing our lab also. We also feed mice the high fat diet, and we also see after high fat diet, and we feed two group mice, actually four group mice. We have different genetic background mice also, and we
Mhm.
just feed high fat diet and normal, so that, and after that, for certain time period, and after that we just sacrifice
Yeah.
them, and we isolate liver, adipose tissue, and check it out what happened. And we also use the therapy also, they are working or not. The if okay, if we feed the high fat diet and we treat some chemical, the high fat diet is working in our mice also, so that we also doing
Yeah,
about that.
that's a really good model to show that how excessive eating of junk food is going to affect you, and how that can be cured if we do those studies or discoveries in the mice first, which
Yes,
means
yes,
the fat people versus lean people.
yeah, of course we just do like that.
Yes, yes.
So
Okay.
so I go to the another part. Okay, fasting again. I will talk about fasting now. This is the actually now from the western part. There is now new fashion, that is intermittent fasting. What exactly they mean? That uh, not as a picture 16 hours fasted or maybe 8 hours feed. Actually not like this. People do another day fasting, okay, one day feed and another day fast, total 24-hour fasting. Also they, people also do another another day fasting, that is 2 day feeding, 1 day fasting also. Or they after, or one people, or some people they do 1 week, 2 or 3 days fasting, or 4 days eating also. And also this is the just simple language, simple word also. In one day, that is 24 hour, they do 16 hour fasted or 8 hour feed condition. We can, in our scientific language, we can call it as calorie restriction also, or intermittent fasting also. This is a good therapy if you don't want to do exercise, or if you are lazy, you just try intermittent fasting. In Google or in lecture, you can see a lots of article regarding the intermittent fasting, how people do and what is the diet control. And this is a very good therapy for that intermittent fasting, and you can relieve from the some more metabolic disease. So
So can I just ask you a quick question before you go to
mhm,
the next slide?
yes,
So when you do, I mean, I heard people also do like they eat food in the morning or lunch, but they try to
yes,
have very light food or no food in the dinner time. They
yes,
skip the dinner, or they just have like one apple or one orange or just some water uh, during the dinner time. So is
Yeah.
that also intermittent fasting?
Yeah, exactly. Intermittent fasting. You don't have any calorie. You can have some normal juice, not the food, not the preservative juice, just normal juice,
Regular
or
food. Yeah.
just treat what the green tea or water. You
So,
have to, but
my
you
question,
can't. Yes,
yeah, my question
you
is,
can't
Raghav,
eat.
go ahead, go
Yes.
ahead. Yeah, my question is that
Hmm.
that so these kind of intermittent fasting or the other way of fasting you mentioned about, like there should be at least two fasting in a month,
Yes.
or this is more rigorous to have, skip one meal or at least have fasting once or twice in a week or something. Is it recommended for people who is already metabolically challenged, or who already have obesity, or they are already fat, or it should be a general practice for everyone?
I saw some YouTube in India. Some doctor, they mentioned, they recommend, but they mentioned that they have to do some intermittent fasting, but they have some restricted food. They mentioned some restricted food. Also, some lab in Canada, they treat the people with diabetes with some fight, calorie restricted fight, CR fat, and they works well. And if you need, I will provide some article also. I have that article also, they are working.
Okay. So
And
that will be really
but I
helpful
have
to provide
but
those articles.
this
I'll
question
put
is,
those articles in the description section so that people can read it later if they have a chance. I'll
of
put that
course,
in.
I'll provide.
Okay.
And yeah, there is one arguable question also, okay, if you do fasting in our community, Hindu community or Muslim community, if you do fasting, okay, one day fasting, for example, 24-hour fasting, and tomorrow I have to break the fast. So okay, if I break the fast, I eat more heavy diet. Okay, I'm much more hungry and I eat more heavy diet. That is also not good. We had we had uh, uh, we
That's a good
also
point.
we also do one experiment regarding that. After fasting, we feed the mice just not normal diet and high fat diet. We fasted mice for 16 hours, and then after that we feed mice high fat diet for another 16 hours, and normal so that for another 16 hours. And what we see that the high fat diet feed mice, the lipid deposition, in even though the fasting, the lipid level was decreased, but when they eat the high fat diet, the lipid deposition was much more than normal also. So that
Uh,
that is not good thing. Whatever you are fasting, okay, I fasting, but my weight is not decreased. What you do, so you have to
yeah.
take care of that.
I,
So
I
for
think I think
diet is
I
also,
think I think that's a good point. So what you're trying to say is, if you're doing fasting, there is a purpose for doing fasting.
of
Is to
course.
strive, your body from the energy so that the deposited energy can be utilized and you will be fat free. But
Yeah.
if you do fasting and you forget the purpose of fasting, and next day if you eat a lot of food, you are again supplying a lot of extra energy to your body, and then you come back to the same position. You come back to the same situation. So it's not going to help. So do fasting, and when you break your fasting, you come back to your normal diet, not
but
excessive diet.
but still this point is arguable. Some people, what did they do, uh okay, 1 week they did not eat any junk food, but from 7 day, one day they eat junk food, they eat a lot, and then after that for 6 day they did not do, and they are also healthy. So this point is also arguable, this research is also arguable. So it is, I don't know when it will form
We'll
or
have a
not, I'm
concrete
not sure.
we'll have a
So
concrete
this is,
answer. But in general, there is no doubt about it from your presentation that we should avoid having junk food. We should avoid
of
having,
course, yeah, the junk food we
and
have
we
to
should
avoid.
try
Of
to
course, this
do
we have to avoid.
fasting, whatever it is. But we should try to do fasting on and off to give rest to our body and utilize some of the excessive fat in our body.
Yeah,
That's not arguable, right?
that's my point.
Okay.
So we are talking about intermittent fasting. We talk a lot. So this is a very good therapy. If you don't want to do exercise, you can do and you can try. There is lots of literature in Google or everywhere you can find it. In Google also you can find it, how to do intermittent fasting and how can eat. And there is some literature. Also, they are much more beneficial for in yeast. Also, you can see in mice. uh, the multi-system regeneration was also increased. Adiposity, that is lipid deposition in adipose tissue, was decreased. Also, they also beneficial for cancer, inflammatory disease also decreased, and they increased the immunity system. And of course, the lifespan of the mice was much more increased by intermittent fasting. And if you go to our human, yeah, of course, they also take place. The regeneration markers were also increased, and the main things, the diabetes was also decreased. The question you asked sometimes about, that is diabetes also decreased by uh, fasting, or periodic fasting, or intermittent fasting, you can say that, or cardiovascular disease, or cancer also decrease. And still intermittent fasting is still going on. How much beneficial for women is still going on, so you can check it much more. And they are also beneficial, as I mentioned, that they are much more beneficial for women. Yeah, you can see they protect against more neurodegenerative disease. Also, they label the insulin. Also, they reduce the insulin resistance. Also, they reduce risk of heart disease, and so on in the human. So, intermittent fasting, or another day fasting, or whatever you say, is much more beneficial for our health disease. And another thing, the much more important thing is that the induction of brown adipose tissue. What is brown adipose tissue? So we have three kind of adipose tissue, not three, exactly two kind of adipose tissue. That is white adipose tissue, you can see it here, and brown adipose tissue. White adipose tissue, they store lipid. As I mentioned, that they store lipid in the form of adipose tissue. We have the adipose tissue, and they are somewhere everywhere. So they are white color. Also, they use for a excess energy. If we have excess energy, they store. And another is a brown adipose tissue. They don't have they are not white color. They are exactly brown color. The reason why they are brown color, because they have much more mitochondria. That is much more energy. They use for much more energy. So exactly, the brown adipose tissue is much more good for us. And previously, it was known that brown adipose tissue just uh, available, find in only in the infant, but now it's already find that brown adipose tissue also in the adult, or even in the uh, old people also, we have the brown adipose tissue. The brown adipose tissue is much more beneficial. We have to increase our brown adipose tissue. If we work much more hard, or if we exercise, or if we do fasting, we can increase the brown adipose tissue. And if we increase the brown adipose tissue, this is also much more beneficial for us, for the reduction for our metabolic related disease. And you can see that brown adipose tissue, how they are categorized in the human, in the infant, that is in the baby. You can see that the red color are much more thick. You can see they are everywhere. The brown adipose tissue is everywhere, because the infant, they need much more energy. That's why they have the brown adipose tissue. But previously they found that previously people think that, the scientists think that only infant, in human case, only infant had brown adipose tissue. But recently they found that no, young adult or aged have also the brown adipose tissue. They are working, and you can see. But however, the concentration of brown adipose tissue is decreased, and you can see they are much more. The yellow color is adipose tissue, or lipid content is increased. When you become much more aged, the red color become much more decreased, but still they also have the brown adipose tissue. The main thing is that from the adipose tissue, you can see that if I go the here, we can increase, we can convert the white adipose tissue to the brown adipose tissue. We can call it as the bees fat. If we work much more hard, if we exercise, or if we do fasting, or if we do intermittent fasting, or if we eat proper diet, we can convert this white fat to the brown fat. This white fat, the mitochondria, it should increase much more. So the and if our body get much more brown adipose tissue, this is also much more beneficial for us. So the paper, there is also lots of paper how they are beneficial. So they exactly, the brown adipose tissue is uh, active during the cold temperature, that is cold temperature, of course. And also recently they also find, and we are also doing, our lab is also doing, we also see some we have some peroxisomal knockout mice, and we found that brown adipose tissue was also increased without the cold adaptation. We fed some normal diet, and we find that brown adipose tissue was increased. So you can see that during cold expenditure, if we put the people in cold temperature, the brown adipose tissue in the brown adipose tissue, the mitochondrial brown adipose tissue is lipolysis induced, and brown adipose tissue is much more increased. So this is also one more uh, beneficial for metabolic syndrome. Hence, brown adipose tissue is increased. So we can say that exercise, fasting, intermittent fasting, or induction of brown adipose tissue might be, and also there is a lots of solution also might be beneficial for uh, a reduction of metabolic syndrome. So for better health now and for lifetime, we have to take care of food. So just eat the right food, then only we can live a longer life, and we can be sure of all the metabolic disease. So that is my point. So Dr. Avitek, you
Yeah,
can.
so that was really really interesting, and I think not only for students but also
Yeah.
for but also for general audience, it was
Mhm.
very interesting to know about how the diet affect our life, and if we want to have a healthy life, we have to take these things seriously. Like, it cannot be we talk about fasting, we talk about exercise, but we don't really incorporate that in our lifestyle, and it's very very much important, it's very much needed, because uh, people say that what you are is what you eat,
Yeah, of
right?
course.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's very important. So with that note, if you want to talk a little bit about what kind of research is being conducted in this field, what people are
Ah,
doing, what kind of question they are trying to answer in the lab, that will be interesting to know.
now there is a lots of people are doing for metabolic disease
So
because
if you don't
it's a.
have any further slides, you can come to stream directly, or if you okay, so you have some slides. Okay, so yeah,
Yeah, I have some slide.
what are the questions you ask in this
Yeah,
field?
exactly. There is lots of people are doing for lipid meta. Our lab is also doing for lipid metabolism. We have some genetic manipulated mice. We work on the paroxysm. Paroxysm is same as the mitochondria also, and we have some genetic manipulated mice also. And we just simple thing, we are just doing the western blot. This is the picture of western blot, and how we can measure the protein, how we can check the protein, how we can check the RNA. We do PCR also, qPCR also, and we have the GCMS, LCMS also in our lab. We have the microscopy also, and we have the mice. I didn't put the mice picture, and we are just working on mice also, and we are working for the paroxysm in our lab. That is our point. Yeah.
So basically, what you do is, what I understand from you is that you have two different kind of mice. One is has a mutation on it or genetic modification on it. So for the students who don't know, genetic modification means we change one or two genes in the body. So in our body is made up of cells, right? And cell is
Yes.
made up of nucleus. Cell has nucleus, and nucleus has DNA, and DNA has small genes, like many genes. DNA is made up of many genes. So if you mutate, change a gene, or completely chop off that gene, we call
Yes.
those kind of organism a knockout organism. Knockout
Yeah.
means completely knocked out that gene. Say, for example,
Yeah.
there is a gene which makes our Raghav, you want to come to the StreamYard
Yeah.
because
Okay. Okay, I will
yeah,
come.
yeah, because we are just doing some discussions,
Hmm.
and that's the last slide you had, right?
Yes. And this is the
Okay,
last slide.
yeah. So as I was talking about is that so as I was explaining to the audience that our body is made up of cells, right? And cell has nucleus, nucleus has DNA, DNA is made up of genes.
Yes.
DNA is a long chain which has small genes,
Yes.
and each gene controls
Yes.
one function. So one
Yeah.
gene, there will be one gene for your hair color, eye color. Not only one, there could be more than one, but there is a specific gene which controls your, all the functions you are doing, your phenotype, how you look, how you talk, everything. So if you just cut that gene and remove from your DNA,
Mhm.
say for example you have a gene for your black hair, if you cut it
Yes.
and remove it, your hair becomes white, because you don't have gene to produce pigment to make your color
Yeah.
black. So
Yes.
that is what we call knockout, right? So if you
Yes.
knock out
CRISPR.
one
Yeah. This
particular.
is yes. CRISPR-Cas9 mediated knockout we have,
Yep, yep.
and
And CRISPR-Cas is the technique which got Nobel Prize this year. That's the technique to edit the gene.
yes.
You cut the gene, remove the gene, and that's how you can understand the function of that particular gene. So you have a
Yes.
mice
Yes.
with that gene, you have a mice without that gene. And now you can try to study whatever you want to study. You'll understand whether that gene is involved in that function or not.
Yeah. Right.
So
You
if
are
it's
right.
involved,
Yes.
it will not, you will not see that property in the mice where that gene is absent, but you will
Yes.
see that function in the mice. So you make knockouts. You have two
And
mice, one is has knockout, one is regular. You feed
yes.
them high fat diet, and you try to understand how. Uh,
Yes.
do you look at diabetes, or you just look at some other
Exactly. We did
pathway?
not. We did. I did not look at diabetes, but we just see that the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease we can see. And if we find, okay, if we have something knockouts, for example, just say X knockout, and we find even though we feed a lots of high fat diet, but if we did not see the lipid accumulation in the knockout mice, we can say that okay, this knockout mice, that this X mice or this knockout mice might this protein or this gene might be responsible for induction of hyperdiet, and then we find the uh, function of that gene, and we found okay, if we find the activator or deactivator of that gene, and we try to check it out in the clinical trial, okay, this is good for the decrease in the obese in the human or not. So that is our point. So we that's
So
why
my
we just do the
question,
knockout match.
yeah. So my question is, Raghav. I'm asking a
Hmm.
little more specific question because I know a little bit about it. So
Hmm.
so you try to screen different genes, or you know what gene you want to study and you have knockout for that gene.
Exactly. We have some genes we try to screen also, and we see some previous literature, which one is much more interesting. And if okay, there, if something okay, lots of people are studying about it, then we can do knockout, because doing knockout is not a small thing. We have to mice knockout. First, we check in the cell culture if it is working. Then we go to the mice knockout. Some yeah, of course, same as screening, we can do screening and we find something, and if it is novel, then we go to the high fat diet, we feed high fat diet or whatever diet. Also we have some drug, also we check some drug also, but knockout mice is much more good in for us.
Okay, so that reminds me my PhD work also. I was talking about my PhD work, right? So during my PhD, there is a gene called myostatin. So
Yes.
myostatin, yeah, myostatin is a gene which
Yeah.
controls the growth of your muscles, like how your
Ah,
muscles
yes.
are growing. Okay, so if, and myo means muscles, statin means blocking. So this is
Yes.
the protein which blocks the excessive growth of your muscles, because your
Yes.
muscles cannot keep growing, and you cannot become Hulk. So
Yes.
it has to stop somewhere, right? So this
Yes.
protein controls the stop of your muscle growth. So now
Yes.
what people thought, that what if we block this protein itself? If you
Yeah.
block the protein, your muscles will keep growing, and then you become
Yeah.
like more muscular. You don't have to do exercise. You will be like,
Yes.
bodybuilder or whatever it is, and that happens because there are many naturally mutated organisms. There is a bull which has
Yeah.
mutation in the myostatin gene, which means they
Yeah.
cannot produce myostatin. So because they cannot produce myostatin, their muscle growth cannot be stopped. So their muscle
Yeah.
growth becomes tremendous, and those bulls are like really fat, really, really bulky, very strong fat. Similarly, there is
Yes.
a dog also. They have natural mutation, natural knockout of myostatin. So they are like really thin, but
Even though yes.
very muscular, and they run really fast. They are like one of the fast runner dogs. So then people thought that why can't we, block this protein in our body in a
Yes.
controlled manner, so that
Yes.
we don't have to do exercise, we don't have to do a lot of, these, we have to choose between diet and all those kind of stuff. We just block that protein, you'll have more muscles, and if you have more muscles, you have less fat, so you look thin, you look strong, and you have more muscles. And then if you don't have fat, obviously you'll have less chance to having metabolic disease like diabetes, hypertension, blood pressure. So it will control your disease also, and you will
Yes.
become more stronger. So we are working on that project during my PhD, and my work was to establish. So what we observed in that study is that we had myostatin knockout mice. So mice
Mm-hmm.
which don't have myostatin, so they were very thin and very,
Mm-hmm.
muscular, and then regular mice. And when you
Yes.
feed both of them high fat diet, the regular mice become bulky because obviously they
Uh,
eat a lot of junk food, so they become
yes.
fat. But these myostatin knockout, like the mice which have no myostatin protein on it, they never put on fat. They are still thin and muscular. But
Yes.
one thing we observe that they don't become diabetic also. They never become diabetic. They are
Oh, really? Oh,
so what
oh,
we
that's.
what we did not know that they become insulin resistant or non-diabetic. Is it because of some different signaling pathway of diabetes,
Might be.
or because those mice do not put lipid, they do not put fat, and because of that obesity induced diabetes is controlled. So
That might.
so my proposal was that the myostatin knockout mice do not have any specific pathway regulation. What
Yes.
happens is because of myostatin knockout, they don't put on fat. Because they don't put on fat, the diabetes which induced by obesity is blocked. That is the only thing that
Uh,
is blocked. And I was looking for this diglycerol, DAG, and
TAG. Yes.
try something.
Triacylglycerol.
Yeah,
Triacylglycerol.
and that mediated PKA pathway we are looking at,
Yes.
and we
Yes.
are
And
looking at,
lyophilized.
it can control GLUT4 via GLUT4, it can control PKA pathway, and I wanted to look at those pathway regulation in myostatin knockout mice versus regular mice. That is something I was doing in my
Yeah.
first year of PhD, but then I moved to another lab and started doing structural biology.
Oh, that's good. Anyway, this is good study about diabetes or metabolic disease. I like it. I like this stuff a lot. Much much
Yeah.
good.
So that's what I vaguely remember about. I mean, it has been ages. I was doing these studies in 2011, and then I never worked on diabetes or these kind of metabolic diseases. But I had a chance to work on this project for a short period
Mhm.
of time, and there is a lot of hope. Like many people believe that if you block that protein, you become Hulk. You become really, uh, and there are many people trying to work to develop an inhibitor, a blocker for that
Uh,
protein to have less fat, more muscles, and so you don't have metabolic disorder.
yes, yeah, that's the good thing. And one thing I wanna join you that we have the knockout, that is knockout model, that is CRISPR-Cas9 genetic, and we can't do the knockout in human also, because why? Because there might be something. If something gene is knockout in human, the genetic capability of mice and human is different. Of course, there is much more similar, but they are different. So we try to find the active. If we find, okay, some gene, if knock out some gene in mice, even though we feed a high fat diet, the mice fat is not deposited, we can say that, okay, well, then we try to find the activator of that gene, or reducer of that gene, both things, activator and reducer. And if we find that we screen everything, and if we find an activator and reducer, then we try to put in the human clinical trial, okay, they are working or not in the human. So same as you can heard about the phenofibrate. That is the this is the uh, lipid decreased process. That is this phenofibrate also, they decrease the lipid. If you inject the phenofibrate in human, they decrease and we also publish a paper that is, we treat mice with phenofibrate with high fat diet, and we find that the lipid component, even though we feed a high fat diet mice, the lipid component was decreased. The similar same thing. It's so
Yeah.
we try to knock out, we try to make the
So
activator
that,
or
that's,
deactivator
that's
of that
that's
gene.
that's a very good point. So for young student who don't know much about this genetic term we are talking about, so the when we say knockout means we delete the gene from the organism, that we can do in mice or lower organism, because we can sacrifice them to learn the science.
Yes,
But
yes,
that is not something we practice in human. What we do is what we learn from that study and try to establish the function of that particular gene or that particular protein by making knockouts. And once we understand the function of that gene or that protein, we try to find ways to change the expression or the function of that protein in our body by some drug, some molecule, but we don't
Yes.
really knock out or delete the gene from our body unless we have a genetic disorder and we want to do gene manipulations by
Yes.
CRISPR
That's
or some other
yeah.
means.
That's my point. Absolutely, that's the
Yeah.
point.
So that was wonderful talk, Raghav, and I'm really sure that our audience learned a lot about fasting, exercise, and how diet affects our life. So before I let you go, let's take a few questions, and then probably we can end today's session because it's already close to 1 hour. So for the viewer who are new to this channel, I again request you guys to hit subscribe button because we are putting a lot of effort to bring researcher, and they are putting a lot of effort to spend time with you guys, their precious time with you guys, and share their work and their research. So hit subscribe button, press the bell icon which is next to subscribe button so that you get notification for all our talk every Saturday we do. With that note, let's take a few questions and then we'll finish today's session. So there is one question, I can put it here on the screen. You can see uh, Arun is asking, is age alone related to diabetes, or age related lipid accumulation is the cause of diabetes?
Exactly. Age alone is not related to diabetes. Age means just declining of your work. But if you can see, if you have the proper diet, there is no aging. You can increase the lifespan. Lifespan means, or aging means, if your function, if your body function is working or not. And increased lifespan means your body function is working. So aging is different thing, and lifespan is different thing. So he mentioned that, is age alone related to diabetes? No. If you eat more, or if you eat the junk food, they should increase the diabetes, not age only increase the diabetes. That is the main point. Or what you can say, age related lipid accumulation is the, yeah, of course, age related lipid accumulation is the cause of diabetes. Of course, that will be also. And diabetes also, some genetic background also, people they have the diabetes, I have heard about that. And lipid accumulation, not we can say that is lipid accumulation, whatever the baby, or maybe uh, some teenager also they have the diabetes. We can say that. So the lipid accumulation is the main thing.
Yes, and I'm just getting some more questions on my, in the comments. So let me take one more question. So Abhishek is asking, is any correlation between insulin-dependent glucose uptake or obesity and obesity in type 2 diabetes at receptor? That's very specific question,
Yes.
and I think you are not exactly working on diabetes, but if
Yes, I'm not exactly one working, but we can say that, yeah, there is uh, a glucose uptake and obesity might be. I think there is might be some part, but diabetes part two, we are just exactly not doing about that. We are just doing the metabolic related disease. We are just working, but I'm not sure about that.
yep. So I think I can try to give a little bit answer, but I'm also not very sure. So he's asking, is any correlation between insulin-dependent glucose uptake and obesity type 2? Yes. So there is a direct correlation between obesity and the insulin uptake. So what happens is when you are obese, which means you have more secondary metabolite production of fat. So which means you have more stored fat, which break down into triacylglycerol and other secondary metabolites. And when that increases, that all make your insulin receptor insensitive for insulin, which means you become insulin resistant, we call it. So
Yes.
obviously there is a direct correlation between obesity and insulin, diabetes. More,
Diabetes.
if you're obese, you have higher chance of becoming diabetic because your insulin receptor, which is GLUT4, become less responsive for insulin. So if you have
Yes.
enough insulin production, still enough insulin production, you're gonna not insulin will not help you because it's not gonna bind to a receptor and trigger the dissipation of excessive fat because or up the glucose because insulin becomes it cannot bind to the receptor and the pathway get blocked. So yes,
Yes.
there is a direct correlation.
Yeah, there might be the correlation. Yes, that is the
Yep. I'll
correlation.
take one more question and then probably we'll end today's talk. This also looks very specific, but we'll see if you have answer. So there is a question called how are autophagy and lipolysis in adipose tissue related during the fasting to benefit us?
Yeah, of course. Autophagy, autophagy means that the self suicide. Okay, you can just normal word self suicide, because during fasting condition also our body needs a lots of energy, and from that point, if you have no lipid, the the what we call the defective organism or defective organelle, that is mitochondria or lysosome or whatever, they just suicide itself, and they, after they die or suicide, they induce fat or lipid, and hence the energy takes place, and so that's, we can call it as autophagy. So lipolysis and autophagy. So what's the question? Well, how are autophagy and lipolysis and adipose tissue related during fasting? Yeah, during fasting condition, of course, I mentioned that lipolysis of course takes place because the hydrolysis of lipid induce in the adipose tissue and they go to the liver, and that's why the uh, uh, other organelle, they take the fuel. And autophagy also the same thing. Autophagy also the suicidal bag, that is, if there is no lipid, the suicidal the damaged organelle, they die, they suicide itself, and they produce fuel or energy, and that's also used for the energy metabolism. So they are both are beneficial. They are both are beneficial for our health. If autophagy is much more, but still there is some arguable. In cancer, autophagy is not good, because the cancer cell, if autophagy is induced, the cancer cell get a more glucose, more lipid, and hence cancer cells survive. So that's why in cancer cell or other thing, autophagy is not beneficial. So they have some autophagy deficient, they treat the chloroquine or other things. So in cancer cell, that will be not more, but in a normal condition, the autophagy is much more beneficial. So that's the point. Yeah, that's very good question.
Yep. So I think uh, so that was very good explanation. Yes, autophagy has, I mean, a lot of people are studying these days autophagy and trying to understand the role of autophagy. It can trigger different signaling pathways in different situations. As you mentioned that in case of fasting, it is beneficial, but in case of cancer, it's bad because it provides more nutrition to dividing cells, and your dividing cells can grow faster and become more cancerous. So
Yes.
yeah, there is a lot of study happening in the field of autophagy. You can read a lot of review papers on autophagy and learn more about it. There are many more questions, but probably we will not be able to take all the questions now because I think we are running a lot of time. But let me yeah. So if we could not take your questions right now, you can always go back and check this video on our YouTube channel, and we
Of
try to
course, I will.
answer. Yeah, we'll answer those questions in the comment section. So don't forget to go back and check this video on YouTube channel. And if
Yes.
you're watching this video after the live session, if you did not join the live session, you can always go back to our YouTube channel. You'll find these videos, watch it there, and still you can ask your question in the comment section if you are watching it in future, near future. If you are watching it anytime, feel free to ask your questions. We'll try to answer those questions in the comment section. Also share this video with your friends so that it reaches to maximum. It's our humble request to share it with more students, because the success of this whole program lies in your hand, because the more and more students watch these kind of show, they will learn more about research, they will learn more about what exactly is happening around the world in all different field of science, and probably they can encourage them to become researcher in future like Raghav. So
Thank you.
that was really outstanding talk, Raghav, and I'm very
Thank you.
thankful that you gave your time
Thank you.
and
Thank
you
you.
explained it really well. And with that note, I'm gonna leave your email address in the description section, so that
Of
any
course.
one of you have any question about career in this field, any doubt to if you want to do research in this field, project in this field, you can feel free to contact Dr. Raghav anytime in future also,
Of
and
course,
he
you
will be
can
more than
enter.
happy. Yeah, he will be more
Yes.
than happy to help you or guide you to become researcher or to do any project in this field. With that note, thank you so much. It's late
Thank
night
you.
at your place in
Of course.
Korea, but still
It's
you came.
almost 12:45 a.m.
Uh, yeah, and it's late night, midnight in your place. It's early morning in my place. Um, but I'm very thankful that you are giving your time. You have baby, you have family. Still, you gave your time. You are still in the lab and giving this presentation. I'm very delighted and very thankful to you for
Thank
giving
you.
your time.
Thank you very, very
And
much. Thank you.
hope to do some collaborations in future. And I wish you all the best for your research. Do much more good work. Get good medicines for us. And like we got vaccine for COVID, just try to get more medicines
That
for
is a
us,
good thing.
and we'll be
Thank
very
you.
happy.
Yeah. Thank you. And yeah, thank you for your time. Yeah. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you.
And you can answer
Bye
me.
bye.
Yeah.
So
Bye.
with that note. Thank you, viewers, for joining us. And it was pleasure having this show today. We'll have another show next Saturday, exactly same time, which is 8 p.m. Do join us at that time. Hit subscribe button, press bell icon, because if you don't press bell icon, you will not get notifications. And there are 5 more episodes which we already have done on our channel. Go back and check them. We have talked about satellite research. We have talked about research in the field of solar energy harvesting. We have talked about lung cancer. We have talked about gut microbes. So there are all variety of talks we have already done. There are a few more talks which will come from NASA and in the from the field of physics, chemistry, bio. There are many more interesting talks are lined up. So stay tuned, share with your friends, try to bring more and more students to the show, and we'll see you in the next show, Saturday, 8 p.m. Next Saturday, 8 p.m. Till then, take care. Bye bye. And stay healthy and happy. Bye.